Help us, God, teach all people of all races and faiths in all countries all over the world that peace seems so far off is in fact within our reach. Let us all live in peace, God, and let us all say amen.
Thank you, Mark. And now to lead us in the pledge and four-way test is Jay Mallory, EVP Marketing and Business Development at ImageQuest, a Paul Harris Fellow and Chair of the Membership Development and Engagement Committee.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
You may be seated. It is always our pleasure to welcome guests, and we have a lot of them today. I'm so excited. We have special guests today who were recently recognized by Business First, along with Mark Cole, as 40 under 40 honorees, and we are proud to have you join us today. So Rotarians, please take a moment to introduce yourself first and introduce your guest, and guests, please stand as you are introduced.
President Gene, I'm Fred Cowan. My guest today is Holly Toronto. Holly is, what's your position, Council Lady? What is your position? Special Projects Coordinator at the Council on Aging. And also in addition to that, she is a former Peace Corps volunteer. And I invited her here today. She was a Peace Corps volunteer in the Ukraine. You've heard of that lately. And you will be hearing more about a project that's just being developed now, partnering, it's called Partnering for Peace between Rotary and the Peace Corps. So that's something to be on your agenda for the future. But welcome, Holly.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, President Gene and fellow Rotarians. I am pleased to welcome Michael Ryder, who comes to us from Bowling Green, Kentucky. He is a senior advisor with Heartland Payment Systems.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, President Gene, Andrew Holden Park National Bank, and I'm honored to have my good friend Chip Ridge with the millennial title here.
Good afternoon, President Gene. I'm not going to give bios on everyone, but I'm happy to welcome some of my fellow 40 under 40 recipients. With us today is Torrance here. Did I see Torrance? There he is. Torrance, stand up. We also have with us Nicole Hayden. Nicole, stand up. Thank you, Nicole. We also have with us Miss Sandra Johnson, who made the mistake of saying she'd been looking to join Rotary. Allison Pittman. Allison, stand up, please. David Lopez. We also have Chelsea Ellis Hogan with us, and her sister Portia Ellis. And I think that's everybody.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark, for bringing these guests and guests. Thank you for coming. We welcome you and hope you will consider joining our club. If you have more information, where is Craig Sherman? Where is he? There he is there. And our What is Rotary table is here, over here with lovely Amanda. Please, after the meeting, make your way over there and just learn a little bit more about us and get an application. Thanks so much. We also love to highlight Rotarians in the spotlight. 4 Louisville Rotarians were nominated for today's Woman Most Admired Woman recognition. Congratulations to Dr. Natasha Munshi, Tara Louisville, Barbara and Lynn Jameson, who is our Rotarian, and Kimberly Hallbauer, who is also a Rotarian. So please vote daily through March 31st, and let's help them win. The link is in the Sparks, and it is also on our website. Also, last Monday, Executive Director Delene Taylor and I appeared on Wade 3 Listens Live with John Ramsey to promote Rotary and the Mardi Gras Masquerade, and it was fun. I was also honored to speak at the Louisville Suburban Rotary Club last week as well. So And Executive Director Delene Taylor also recently met with Salvador Farfan of the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. to exchange flags. So we're welcome to have him here. Thanks to everyone who came out for last week's masquerade event. The food and the drink were delicious. Who came? Who here? Wait, yeah. Oh, it was fun. Ragtime band decor made us feel a little bit like we were in New Orleans. Special thank you to Ashley Brower for her help coordinating the event, and Rotarian Greg Braun, where is he, who provided prizes for the games. There's still time to bid on the 3 auction items we had. You can either bid in person over there. They're there. We have 3 items. One is a bourbon tasting for 4 to 2 distilleries. One is now you have Gilda's Club for an evening, an entire evening, which is great for cocktail party for 50 or dinner, sit down dinner for 30. I have to tell you, Jeff Underhill has a winning bid at $500 for this one. So if you want that one, you got to bid early, bid often. And then a stay at one of our state parks, an overnight stay and a round of golf for 4. So there you go. Information to bid online is in Sparks as well. Now, this is a photograph of a crawfish getting a tip for his performance at the Rotary Mardi Gras party last week. Above average temperatures have helped Louisiana's crawfish season get off to a fast start. So, what water temperature is best for these mud bugs to grow? Is it A, 80 degrees, B, 65 degrees, or C, 75 degrees? Okay, what? B, who says B? Wait, who says B? Okay, who says D? No one. B wins, 65 degrees, right. The water temperature, the best water temperature is between 60 and 70 degrees is the optimum temperature for those big fat crawfish to grow. Now, to introduce our guest speaker, I'd like to welcome to the stage Ken Selvaggi, Chair-elect of the Kentucky Derby Festival, Paul Harris Fellow, and Rotary Club Director. Ken.
Thank you, President Jean. Matt Gibson's a great guy. He's the president and CEO of the Kentucky Derby Festival. He was named the president and CEO October of 2019, but he's been with the festival for 25 years. So he's the perfect person to take over, and he's been instrumental in all the big events over the past 25 years, particularly Thunder over Louisville. As president and CEO, he's responsible for the overall operation and financial direction of this nonprofit. He also oversees the work of the festival's staff, 22 people and 4,000 volunteers, just about, who put on this civic celebration every year, which is now more than 70 events in the spring. And they're all on this year. We're excited to have it back in full bore. It's the 67th year for the festival in Louisville. Matt is a member of the National Sports Safety and Security Committee. He is a proud Louisville native and University of Louisville alum. He's also a 2018 Leadership Louisville graduate and a certified festival executive. He won the Carnegie Hero Award, and that is amazing. It recognizes civilians who risk their lives for others, North America's highest honor for civilian heroism. I told you, he's a great guy. So the story of what he did and how he did it is worth asking him. Most importantly, Matt and his wife, Allison, are proud parents of Anna and Nora, who are terrific daughters. Matt Gibson.
Okay. I'll point to, yeah, great. Oh, hi. Well, thank you everybody for having me here today. Normally we don't wear the jackets. I've told this to some of you. It's for, we'll wear it at events and different things, but we made a huge announcement today, which is that we're back. We had a press conference on the waterfront about an hour and a half ago, and it's fantastic because if you look at the timing of when Ken said that I took over this role, it was shortly before the pandemic. And what a great time to take over one of the nation's largest mass gathering companies before you can't do anything that looks like a mass gathering or even a gathering of any size. So after a 2-year hiatus from the traditional festival, that spring rite of passage, a 67-year tradition. I've got actually one of my predecessors is in here. There's only been 4 of us in the history of the company. And Jack Guthrie was 2 years prior, or 2 presidents prior to me. So I have thanks to give to him and homage to pay to his years for the things that he did to shore the company up. And make no mistake about it, the last 2 years was about our survival as an entity, as it was for many organizations. I had more hair. I wasn't this gray, but it has been a long but fruitful journey because the organization is very healthy. We were able to retain all staff, and I'll get into more of how we did it and what we've done. But now we're in the proactive stage as opposed to the reactive stage, as we all were for so very long. What we do for this community at large is all about fun. It is about promoting not only Louisville and Jefferson County, it's about Southern Indiana and bringing those 2 communities together. And we take that very serious. We say we take the business of fun very serious, but it's not always fun in what we do, just like what we were talking about over the last couple of years. I was sharing a tidbit of trivia with Jean right before lunch about how many gallons of water flow past this point every single day. Any guesses from anybody? How many gallons? You can't go too high, I can assure you. 75 billion gallons flow past this every single day. The only reason we know that in the business of fun, the Mighty Mighty Ohio presents its own challenges. When you're talking about thunder, you're talking about a great steamboat race. For every foot that the water goes up, you lose tens of thousands of square feet. But it's one of the largest open air mass gathering venues on the continent. So you have to become a lot of different titles. You have to wear a lot of different hats, and hydrologist was one in my old role where you had to learn a lot about the river. So that's why we know the 75 billion. So just a brief history of us, the KDF. We are not for profit civic celebration. We do all the stuff besides the famous horse race. I still have family in my immediate circle that believe I run the horse race side of it, just a few short, and I could tell you there's some differences in the commas and the zeros and all of that, not only in what we raise and what we do, but what they pay their president too. But so we do all the other stuff that it is, and annually each year we will attract about 1.4 million folks over those 2 years. That is complete removal of what they do. We take top 20% off of the research data to show that there are 2 different entities. And the new president over there and myself have built a very good relationship because we've agreed that we could spend every single dollar that came through both entities to try to teach a community that we're 2 different organizations, but it doesn't do anything to value the product. They're okay with us being synonymous with them, and we're certainly okay with them being synonymous with us because we're all doing the same thing. We started with one event. Anybody have a guess of what that was? Jack, you can't answer, nor can a pink jacket. That's right. That's right. It all started with a parade, and the parade was built because, thank you so much. I do get a clicker. So we started the parade because of a very similar position that we are standing in today and that we take very seriously about creating programming for the community at large, those that may not be able to afford a ticket to go to Churchill. And it's been part of our foundation. It's been part of our discussion even now, because we're all having those very important discussions as you evaluate all your products. We're very proud, and we'll get into more of this later, about some of the things that we've done to reevaluate ours to make sure that we are honoring the mission, and that is creating high quality, low cost entertainment for the community at large. And I would bet dimes to dollars that Jack probably came up with that way back when he was in my role, being in the PR phase, but it's something that's written into our bylaws. It's something that's written into the DNA of our organization. And it's something that we take very seriously when we put these jackets on. We now produce over 70 events, and that's in a very brief amount of time. And it is full speed ahead, and we're right in the thick of it right now. We started with a budget of $640 way back then, and now that's grown to over $7 million from multiple revenue sources. I mean, we are seriously a business. For a festival, it started with one small event. We now generate over $130 million for the economic impact for the community. So for every dollar that we spend, that's an average of about $20 to $21 that goes back into the community. And that does a lot to pave roads, add to quality of life, contribute to JCPS's mission and other missions. And we take it, again, very, very seriously, and something that we're very proud of. A little bit about me. I didn't know Ken was going to go so in depth about the Carnegie piece. That was, just one of those things, you're in the right place at the wrong time or right place at the right time for someone. And it was a game changer for me that kind of led me to this role. But I've been with the organization for, I was 22 years when I stepped into the role as president, and I've just celebrated my 25th year. I am an optimist, but I tend to be a very informed optimist. Sometimes we talk about my optimism, but it's what really got us into a spot where we were looking towards the pandemic and saying we could do anything now that we have these opportunities that have presented to us. And I'm also a quote person. When you're an optimist and quotes person, they tend to go hand in hand. And those around me get inundated by things that strike me, whether they're board members or the staff. Sometimes it gets a little hokey, but certain things speak to me. And then the staff, my invaluable board members and our amazing volunteers know there are quite a lot of Mattisms out there. And that is things that there are no problems until we are out of solutions. And I'll tell you, we've never run out of solutions to solve any of the things. When you can bring, this group would be a perfect example. You could present something to a group of minds in a room like this and you can solve anything. And it proves to fruition every single year. We also say that plans are never final until the projects or events are complete. And that's taught our folks to be very willow in the wind, very flexible. We call it fluid and flexible. And we know that regardless of what we're planning right now, and we're 51 days out of Thunder, that those things can change drastically between now and that first Saturday in May. And it's really what's allowed us to stay healthy and vibrant and still a valuable entity to this community. I also say at times that the things we face are puzzles, not problems, and it just takes getting the right people in the room to solve those puzzles. As I said, I took over one of the largest mass gathering companies in the nation at a time of a pandemic. And there was a time that we started to say, gosh, what if it was only the pandemic we were talking about because of the other things that we learned as a community? And again, when you surround yourself with the right folks, you can solve just about any problem. We say we don't have the power to do that. But when you get people together and you start having the right discussions, we can certainly add our horsepower to those and we can start to move things in the right direction. So our last 2 years in a nutshell, let's see where we go. So we were 34 days out of Thunder. It was next week, a couple of years ago, that we all started talking and starting to see the pandemic come at us. We had 70 events worth of exposure and production commitments that we had promised. About this time we were on track to break all sponsorship records that we had hit before because we were changing our mentality. The minute that I stepped into the role, we started to have discussions about how we could do better, not necessarily do more, because that's not always the right approach, but how can you do better with what you're doing? And our organization has over 450 sponsors that we work with. That when I started, that had about 4 sponsorship programs that we forced them in. Now we have about 450 custom sponsorships. And I am very happy to say that only 4 total sponsors out of that, because they were in a more dire position than we were as an entity. All but 4 of those stayed with us all the way through the pandemic and re-upped for us in 2021 as we did the very different festival, if many of you all saw last year in 2021, where we brought the festival to the community instead of asking the community to come to us. That says a lot about those partnerships. That's one of the coolest things about this job, is that people will take our call. And when we have some of these crazy ideas, and our pink jackets can tell you we have crazy ideas at times, but people will lean in and say, yes, how can we help? I mean, look at Thunder as an example. Look at the parade as an example. putting it on in the middle of Derby week on a Thursday and drive time. And we've made some changes in that regard as we've applied some sanity to things. But when you look at putting one of the largest events in the nation in the middle of a metropolis like this, that's very unique. There's no other air show that looks like ours that's in the middle of a downtown. Thunder still continues to be one of the largest annual fireworks shows on the globe. And people say that's happening in Louisville, Kentucky. What's not only happening, it happens on an annual basis and it's so much fun. So in 2020, we pivoted. We're not even allowed to say that anymore. Don't tell Judy. Because that became very verboten. And we did things like Festival at Home. People were so starving for things. And we did things like rebroadcast of things. Ken was one of the folks that we called. Hey, can we give people something different than just regular television and give them that sense of spring? And we got high numbers on those things because people wanted that spring rite of passage. We did virtual races. We had started doing virtual races a couple years before for people who were deployed, and we would send them packages and they would run around military bases and get a little taste of home. So we had a little bit of a taste of it and people would sign up, but after a few virtual races, it feels like regular training. And one of the benefits that comes from that when you do a real race is the energy that comes around you. And if you've ever trained, I do a lot of trail running. I run a lot better with a partner who keeps me accountable than, oh yeah, I'll just turn around here instead of, going the full distance that I promised. So we had good turnout. We had lots of people sharing on social media. We trended very strongly. Our sponsors appreciated it. We earned over 68% of the dollars that had been committed to us. So we didn't have to give that money back. We started to earn it. We went from 22 million impressions overall from print, media, television, social media to 37 billion impressions over 2020. But we never stopped. We pressed and pressed and pressed and pressed. And then, we can't say enough about our Princess program that's through our co-partners, the Phillies, because they were the first to teach us. You learn from the younger demographic and the younger generation. They were so quick to pivot. Again, don't tell Judy that's twice. I promise I won't say it again. They were the first to pivot, and we really started to see that there was something out there about getting things into social media and on all of those vehicles. We talk about it all the time. For those that have now existed so much in virtual meetings, could you imagine if we didn't have those tools available to us? If this had happened 10 years ago, we'd all been in our professional worlds a different ballgame. I had never attended a virtual meeting prior to that, and now it seems like it's all we do. I'm pretty much over them. How many people are over the virtual meetings? I love being in person. I love being around people, but it's amazing that we had those tools available. Then we go into 2021. We didn't slow down because we knew it was right on top of us. We had to start going back out and having the conversation. But as you know, our governor, who we work very closely with, really led us through the pandemic with a sense of safety and taking care of everybody. And we owed that to our community as well. So we started to have discussions very early as soon as we knew that we were going to try to do something. And so we started to have conversations about what we could do when the restrictions were still high. So we got our staff together to start to talk about what that looks like. It was the first time we'd been together in over 8 months. We put 21 people in a 4,000 square foot room because we had to give everybody their own table. This room wouldn't have been big enough by the governor's standards. And so we really started to have a conversation about what we could do. And boy, were the ideas different. And everybody knows whiteboarding is great. It's what comes off the whiteboarding is where the real skill happens. So it started with things like a traveling parade. We did it 2 days and over 80 miles, and we took the parade to the community at large. It started as a ridiculously windy and rainy day, and we were very nervous how it was going to be received. And it was amazing. In the first mile and a half, people were everywhere. We started to see signage like this everywhere and people standing along the route. And when I say thousands, there were tens of thousands of people over those 80 miles that were just ready for something. And it really gave us a big sigh of relief. I tell you, I was holding my breath. I was leading the parade at first. And to see that kind of response was incredible. We developed a distance but supported mini marathon. Again, nobody was going to do a virtual race again. They were over that piece of it. And so where we couldn't exceed the governor's safety restrictions, I mean, we couldn't touch the fluids, we couldn't touch the food, we couldn't touch the runners from a medical standpoint. Everybody had to be masked until they weren't. And so over 4 straight days, we built a route that took folks through Louisville and Southern Indiana. We went all the way out to New Albany. We had over 68 runners join us because they were starving for that kind of entertainment. And we got great feedback, to the point that now our marathon course, the 26.2 mile portion of the course, now continues over into Southern Indiana. Even this year when we're back into real life space. One of the most successful hole-in-one years we've ever done, and golf for the win. I'm not a golfer myself, but I think that was the only thing that sustained. How many golfers do we have in here? You know, you guys had an outlet that during the pandemic that a lot of folks didn't have, because you couldn't go to the gym, you couldn't do other things, but golf certainly won that. Golfers hit over 42,000 balls on the 2021 pandemic-based hole-in-one. That's a mouthful. And of course, Thunder of Louisville. That's been near and dear to my heart. I started with the organization right when Thunder was began or started, and it has been a labor of love, a challenge, as you know, to shoehorn that monster into this ever-growing metropolis. But we decided, and I never would have thought it possible, that we would take Thunder itself to the community. You can imagine the responses we got when we started those discussions. You know, what if we took it to everybody's backyard, and then we really started to make it happen? We built our command center that's normally in the Galt House there on Bowman Field. We flew an air show there. We flew the first ever Boeing 767 over Bowman Field. They had to train for 10 hours in order to do that, because normally those are fly-by-wire. They go from international airport to international airport. They do not fly over things like Bowman. And when we say we took it to the people's backyard, we did a helicopter shot that showed it from the 5 locations. And you can see it all throughout the community. And in most cases, people could step outside their back door and see or hear something. And then something that I never thought would happen, when you see Thunder, one of the best views is from Southern Indiana looking into Louisville. We never thought that we would see Thunder with the skyline in front of it. I mean, that is one of the most powerful. I have that hung in my office. Ken's seen it, and I also have one of the most rainbow ones from its traditional venue. So one of the things that we learned were there are a lot of things about our program and our products that we can do differently. And we really started to do that. There's nothing like a pandemic and those types of challenges to teach you what you're capable of. You get stronger from those. Again, I joke I aged a lot. I mean, it was really an obsession, but it really is a labor of love. And the reason that we're wearing these jackets, like I said, is that we made an announcement today, and we'll continue to do so, but it's that we're back. People were still asking us up until yesterday that, oh, is Thunder going to be on the waterfront? Are we going to have an air show? And yes, we are. We're going to do all of the things, or most of the things that you've grown familiar with, but they're going to look a little different in a lot of cases. You know, the Pegasus Parade, that's one of the oldest, and it's always been on that Thursday. Well, could you imagine if I went to the mayor's office right now and said, hey, what if we did a parade on that Thursday, and we hadn't done it before, and we want to do it at drive time? They would say that we're crazy, you know, for the wrong reasons. So what we started to realize is that there's more of a celebration to be built around that event. So for the first time in its history, we are doing it on a Sunday, and we're doing it on Sunday, May 1st, so that we can build a day of programming around it, where people aren't trying to get home, get their kids, get back, and we can't build the festival around it or the celebration around it that it deserves. And that was a long 4.5-month discussion that we had with a lot of religious leaders in the community to make sure that we weren't stepping on anybody's toes. We don't do anything blindly here, because we all live and work and play in this community. We owe that to this community. So we always make sure that doesn't mean we get it right, but we always learn from our mistakes and try not to step in the same hole twice. But doing something like this was important to have discussion in advance. Oh, darn it. I've got I got them out of order. I think that one was the hole-in-one. Again, we are building it bigger, better, stronger. It's going to be 10 days since people were so excited to do it. It will be out there and live for that 10 days. And then of course we're doing concerts. I mean, everybody missed concerts. I've gone to every concert since that we were able to start doing so again. So we'll have a big concert lineup. This year also celebrates, well, I'll be damned. There's something going on behind there. Can you, is it possible to drop that one and see? Oh, I see the mini marathon there. Oh, yeah, let's go backward too. So that's close enough. So this year actually celebrates the 50th celebration of the Pegasus pin. I hate to keep pointing at him, sorry, and I know you're chewing right now, but Jack is actually wearing the very first Pegasus pin on his jacket. And the very first year of that pin was actually about promotion. It wasn't about a fundraiser for the organization. And we created 10,000 of them and only 2,000 of them sold. When we started it to be a redemption and an attendance pin, then the popularity increased. And I hate to venture a guess about what the value of that pin sitting on Jack's lapel is, but I guarantee you it's more than this 24 karat gold and 5 pin years of service pin that I have sitting on my lapel. They will go anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 for a complete set now because of the collectability of those now. And if it says Lutan on the back, that will be the higher end. Jack, I won't take it off your jacket, but I bet it is a Lutan that he's wearing. So you can see the homage to it. The image that he's got on his jacket is the exact one that's sitting in the 5. And it's every one of them has a gold appeal to them. So everybody gets that experience. Then also Thunder, again, one of the biggest events in the country. You know, we have that great jewel that is the waterfront. Back in the 90s, we helped reintroduce this community to the waterfront. When we started doing it, it was a mud hole. It was industrial. It was sand. It was recyclers. You had to almost have 4-wheel drive to even get down there. And now look what it's turned into today. With the things that we've experienced in this community, we've learned about our community, not having large events as well. We're taking it on our shoulders to do that reintroduction again. One of the things that we know is that people will come out in droves, and so we better have something for them. And we're very pleased to announce, and we did so today, that we are the 75th we're the opening ceremonies for the 75th anniversary for U.S. Air Force flight. So the legend returns, and we will have a full history scale from everything from the very beginning of U.S. Air Force flight all the way to the modern aircraft that are there. So even if you're not a Air Force or airplane aficionado, it will be loud, it will be fast, it will be incredible to watch. And you know, sometimes it feels like we're on the verge of blowing out the windows of the Humana building. I promise you we won't, but it will be just as loud as it's ever been. And then of course, oh, that's one of my favorite. That's actually on the wingtips that we put on one of our air acts over the air box, showing that air show. And then of course, Thunder itself. Thunder will be an amazing show this year. The meeting right after this is with our Zambelli folks, where we'll actually see the very first iteration of the 28 minutes of the show itself to see where it coincides with our soundtrack that plays over the Thunder sound. And we even took a new approach to that this year. We went out into the community and asked different folks for their playlist, because it's been a very almost intrinsic process in the past where you might get some repetitive stuff, different things would fall in the same places over and over again, and it'll be a departure of anything that you've ever seen. And we're so excited to share that with folks in 51 days. In about 10 hours and 30 minutes, if anybody's counting. People always say, how do you know that? Well, I see it on the back of my eyelids when I try to sleep, really. So that really concludes my presentation. You can tell I tend to be very passionate about what we do. It gets in your DNA. How can you not be passionate when you wear a jacket like this and you have a group of people who help you make it happen? And I can't say enough about not only the volunteers, you guys know what it means to be of service. We have over 4,000 volunteers. I know Ken mentioned that. And it is an amazing piece of it, just to have those relationships and those partnerships and those friendships that are built. And then the board of directors who support me in everything that I do and has been there helping me help this company survive through the craziest of times. So thank you all for having me. I appreciate being here today.
news conference today, other than the announcement that the
Mhm.
parade is going to be on Sunday. What a fantastic idea. Anything else we need to know? Any other new events?
So there's some things that we're doing in new partnership, and you would think that we would have a stronger partnership over the years with Churchill Downs and our partners in Humana. One of the things that we were talking about even today after the press conference is a lot of these partners may be looked at as only a sponsor. Thank you. Oh, I thought that was picking me up too. Okay, great. Oh, that one's for them. Okay, I get it now. You'd think I know that in the business. The sponsors end up being much larger partners. Again, I'll refer to Ken. We will call and start to brainstorm things. And when we started to talk about what we can do from a diversity, equity, and inclusion space for our organization, even though we tend to keep that very front of mind, any organization that wasn't looking into their own companies and saying, what could we do? We leaned into a new partnership that we call the DECI. We always have to change things and put a little spin on it, but we threw community in there as well. So we've got, starting this weekend, our event Justice Fest that we do in partnership with JCPS to give JCPS youth a voice and let folks know that they have something to say. And last year we had 14 groups that came up with different things, a Breonna Taylor run, different equitable programming in schools, interactive, disability accessible playgrounds and the like. And now we have 22 groups that will be there presenting. And we put folks in the room who can help fund it, who can help advise it, who can help make it happen. And it's something that we're very proud of. And then in the next few weeks, we'll be talking about a partnership with Norton's Sports Center on new programming that is, we typically don't do geographic programming. We do things for the community at large, but we thought it was very important to start economic impact as it relates to very specific zip codes, because that's something that has been missing in our community for quite some time. We created a portal and we were really nervous because at the first couple of weeks, we weren't seeing any kind of activity. Melanair Marketplace is a perfect partner in that regard. We got to put name with face today, creating new partnerships that are creating long-term goals and supporting in our 3 categories that are support, restore, and create. And those are the different categories where we're working on. So we've got a lot rolling out in the next 51 days. And we always say, oh, that's plenty of time. But you'll start to see a lot more just pretty much on a weekly basis.
So what you're saying is this more than just 2 weeks.
Huh.
So
Yeah.
You are continuing with your projects year-round.
We really are. People always say, well, what do you do the rest of the 2 weeks? It's a full-time job. I know the pink jackets are laughing the loudest because we never stop doing. I mean, we don't. And we always say that you have to be a little sick to continue doing it because it'll wear you out. But people come back because of what it does for this town, not only from the economic impact, but from the quality of life piece of it, which is so important.
So where do you get your funding?
So we have a few revenue sources. PINs still makes up a very large portion of that. And we thought that we were seeing the decline of the PIN. And going into 2020, we pulled everything out of the stores thinking we were going to do it in September, because originally we had moved Thunder and everything towards September. We all met and decided on the dates and the weekends where Derby would move and we would move. But that was when there were restrictions that were too big for us to do open air venue events, that we couldn't control the number of people, we couldn't control distancing, we couldn't do those things. So we had pulled them back out. The community told us they wanted them back redeployed, and they continued to buy them. And we've seen a resurgence of the PIN, and we're seeing it right now. And then we have sponsorship. And we continue to grow that program, like I said, with 450 different partners. Then food and beverage, which is big. Everybody buys the corn dog and the beers. And one of the things that are on my tenants is that we drive those prices down into the ground, because it's too much like attending a football game or a basketball game where it doesn't seem like it's a great value. It's been one of the challenges that I've seen as a limiter for us. And then ticket sales.
Okay. Rotary, it's maybe right to the microphone if you have any questions. So I would imagine that you're starting to plan for next year already. Yeah.
we're quite a few years. Ken and I were talking about it the other day as we were kind of going over the long list of things, because Ken is my 2023 chair. And so we're already having conversations about 23, 24 and beyond, and different ways that we look about how we continue to be impactful to this community.
So how can businesses, and we have a lot of business owners and directors here, get involved in the Kentucky Derby Festival events?
One of the things that we've seen is a labor shortage that everybody's experiencing. And that volunteer is so important to us. We've created a program called Seat at the Table, where we want to have folks come in and be a part of our organization. It's how you earn your way onto the board. It's how you become our key volunteers. It's how you get involved. And if organizations, and I can make the dollar pitch, I've got a great team that does that. And obviously the dollars roll in. But what's very important to us right now is if organizations have programs within your companies where you incentivize volunteers by either time off or the like, and they have to find those hours, connect with us. We'll help get that out there. We'll help you partner with folks that are meeting those missions. And we started it in, when was workshop? September, October? What we've seen that grow from since just that period, but we've got a long way to go. So if you've got those folks that you incentivize folks to volunteer, that would be very valuable to us and be very invaluable to the community at large.
Tracy?
So that you don't have to tell their story to 50 people, can you briefly give us a synopsis of the Carnegie Award?
Absolutely. This is a bigger crowd than I've told it. There was I was a firefighter in my previous life. I was a gymnast going into college, and I was part owner in a very large gymnastics gym here. And I thought that was going to be part of what the rest of my life would be. I just applied to be a stat flight tech on the helicopters. And I did, again, a lot of high ropes rescue stuff for the fire department and then rock climbing. And my now wife, we had just started dating, and I thought it would be neat to share the experience where I go rock climbing and show her what that looks like. And I'll make a very long story short. I had just climbed one of the hardest climbs in Red River Gorge and came down, my adrenaline was pumping, and I hear someone scream behind me. And I turned around and looked, and there was a 18-year-old young man falling off of the cliff 85 feet above. Sorry, I get a little emotional on that. So I did what I thought anybody would do. I've heard since that people say, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did that. I don't think I thought about it, honestly. I just moved. I was a gymnastics instructor, so you catch all the time. I've broken more bones than I can count, just keeping people from hitting the ground. And it probably wasn't from me to that table. And I thought I was going to snatch a rope and lock him down. If you've ever rappelled, it's called belaying. And he was not on a rope. So I made the last minute decision to hit him like I would in gymnastics. And I hit him in his lower back, and he broke 11 bones on me, broke my back in 2 places and fractured my hip. I thought he was the one that was hurt. I thought I'd just gotten the wind knocked out of me, and adrenaline is an amazing drug. It really is. So I stood up. My best friend was there with me. He was my rock climbing partner. My wife, thank goodness, was on the top of the rock and just thought that somebody had fallen, had no idea that had interacted with me. And as my best friend sat down to distend him, because we really thought he was the hurt one, he looked up and he could tell that I was hurt. So I was worried about being a 911 episode, those hokey shows that we used to watch. So we created splints, and I walked out 1.25 miles with assistance, climbed out. And then it was the sheriff who was standing out there where there was an ambulance, because we waved it on to the young man. And he said, I think you saved that young man's life. So my wife drove me to Lexington because I did not want to end up in Slade, Kentucky. And I did not walk again for 3.5 months. I had multiple surgeries. They told me I wouldn't use my left arm again. I talk with my hands. I've had all the screws and the plates and all of that removed because I thought that was hindering my lifestyle. And I don't think I have any more pain than anybody else. So it was a good one. I had over $200,000 in medical bills that were forgiven by the local hospitals and doctors because of what I did. So, yeah, but thank you. But but it led me here. You know, things, I've always believed things happen for a reason. So that's what led me here. So.
Ever in touch with that young man?
Yes, his name was Gabriel. My grandmother would say, "Oh, you caught the fallen angel." She was, because it was a downtime for me. I didn't know that was not what I thought was going to happen. You know, I didn't walk for a very long time. But I get a great Christmas card from his mom every Christmas, and I keep in touch with him. He's doing great. He is a photography teacher at Wesleyan, West Virginia, I think, and so is doing great. Has a family of his own. So.
What a wonderful story.
Yeah, so that's the story in a nutshell.
Matt, my name is Tom Golden, and after your report just there, this is rather mundane. But I'm curious, you've been there for 25 years, and the issue of security has changed dramatically in that period of time. I don't know how much you can tell us about participation with security and preparation, but I'm curious.
What we always say, and that was my specialty before this, when I stepped into this role, and I took it very seriously. We helped change the industry as an organization when after September 11th, and we really started to look at things different. We always say that the best security plan is one that you don't see, because that prevents people from trying to circumvent that plan. And we continue as an organization. We just recently helped raise federal funds for Louisville Metro, Southern Indiana, for training exercises that bring in full moulage actors that are there experiencing blood and injury, and that so that people can exercise what it looks like to do large scale security events like that. We brought in all of the experts that lived through things like the Boston bombing in 2013, Route 91 Harvest Festival. And we don't keep this to ourselves. We include groups like U of L, all of the concerts, and bring them in so everybody can benefit from those. And we help fund things like Louisville Metro Police has a bomb dog named Thunder that we raised dollars for because they had issue. We help them raise funds for things like the security cameras that they can put in any scenario and be able to watch and keep crowds safe. So we're constantly evolving those programs. And safety is our number one. It doesn't matter if it's a pandemic. It doesn't matter if it's anything related to a mass gathering. And it doesn't matter if it's a crowd this big or one of the largest events on the continent. So it is a constant evolving program and discussion. And we've got great partners in Louisville and Southern Indiana.
I'm a little short. So Matt, I think it'd be good to let everyone know here also about the community engagement piece led by Dr. Craddock and Jerron Jones and all of those guys who came out canvassing the community saying, hey, what would you like to see the Kentucky Derby Festival be? And that's how Melbourne Marketplace became a part of being a partner with you all. And I think that's really important. And also, if you can also tell them, are you going to come out April the 16th? Because we're so excited.
Well, we can't talk about it yet, but we
Okay.
will. Yeah, but she knows because she's on the inside. So research is very important to me. Data is very important to me. And as the board knows, one of the very first things that I wanted was to start to do in-depth research. And we were getting ready to deploy it 1 week from now when the pandemic hit. And thankfully we were able to hold that. And what we were wanting to learn is it's one thing to have a conversation with someone when they're standing at a chow wagon with a beer and a corn dog in their hand. I'm pretty damn happy when I've got that in my hand. Sorry, excuse the French. As my 8-year-old daughter said, that's not French, Dad. She did. Thankfully she didn't go repeat it. But that's what we were doing before the pandemic and before the things that we learned about our society. So we did not stop the data. What we did is refocus the data. We wanted to learn who wasn't coming to our event, why they weren't coming. Do you feel like you belong? Do you feel like there's programming for you? And that's where you're seeing, we call it a marathon and not a sprint. And it is things that we're doing right now to try to focus what we're doing to make sure that it still aligns with what we did, what my predecessors like Jack did to create good quality programming. And so what it has developed into is a portal. And that was one of the things that we were nervous about, is how many folks were responding to the portal. When we first started it, we were getting a few. Now what is coming in at us is ideas for events, how we can support other events, what kind of vendors are out there, because we typically will use some of the larger national vendors or those who have time to respond to our RFPs or believe that they could do Thunder as a whole. Well, that's not how we do it. We use every tent vendor from here to Chicago. We use every porta-john. There's a whole science to that too. I won't bore you with it or gross you out with it. But we use every porta-john in a tri-state area. Well, there are lots of partners who might have half of what we need in their fleet, and we can start to spend dollars there. So what we've started to do is go out into the community and start to give people a better chance to respond on how they can be partners with us, because we're all in it for the same reasons. It's about this community. So the data that's coming back at us and some of the things we're developing now that are going to turn into long-term is really about our future. And that's what we're talking about. Is it's not what we're not talking about right now, right? This festival is just as good as behind us. And we're talking about what we can do for future years and continue to build some of these partnerships. So
Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. Thanks for having me. Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. Okay, so here you are. Thank you so much. And so that you're ready for next year's night.
Well, thank you so much. Can I look at it now?
Yes, absolutely.
Outstanding. I got beads and I have. Oh, it's a Rotary. Coffee cup. I love coffee. Hopefully the mask. Thank you so much. I appreciate everybody having me here today. I mean, I can't tell you thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, I would like to ask our Executive Director, Delene Taylor, to return to the podium for announcements.
No, that's last week's.
Oh,
It's here somewhere. Hang on a second, I'll find it.
she has this in her sleep. She knows it in her-
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I should be able to do this by memory as many times as I've looked at this script in the last couple of days. Okay, so next week's meeting will feature Mary Irby Jones, who is the executive editor of the Courier Journal. You have QR codes on your table that you can scan and go ahead and register. Sabre does ask that we submit our head count by 4 p.m. tomorrow, Friday, and they let us adjust that by noon Monday. But we've started to get lax in giving them accurate numbers. So we do need to be a little more aware of the deadlines and try to go ahead and get your RSVP in by Monday at noon at the latest. We have a district matching campaign, which most of you have seen already in Sparks. The details are on the board and in Sparks, but now through April 10th, your donation of $125 or more to the Rotary Foundation will be matched. And those points count towards Paul Harris Fellow recognition. So I encourage you to consider that. Those do have to be mailed to the address that's on the screen or in your Sparks, I'm sorry. And it's also on our website at louisvillerotary.org. And we are getting really close to selling out our Rotary Day at the Downs on Wednesday, May 4th. So please don't wait. If you want tickets, you need to grab them now. I'm going to start inviting a lot of my friends. And once I do that, there may not be any tickets left. So I encourage you to go ahead and do that. And then save the date for the Louisville City Soccer event on Saturday, August 13th. We'll have the Four Roses Bar pregame and seats will be all together in center field. And reminder to scroll all the way down at Sparks to see all the birthdays at the bottom. Please wish your fellow Rotarians happy birthday and make sure you read about all the events that are coming up. Thank you so much. Back to you, President Jean.
thank you, Delene, and thank you again, visitors, for coming. We really do appreciate your coming, and if all of the board members for the Kentucky Derby Festival, please stay around. We'd like to have a picture of you in your pink jackets. Don't leave before we get that. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions at all about Rotary, again, this is the Reuters Rotary table. Craig Sherman's on his way over there. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.